So, you guys want to see what a force attack in HOI4 looks like IRL? Let's take a look here, man. Into the invasion of Ukraine, Russia's Adviivka disaster.
After months of unsuccessful attempts to break through towards the Azov Sea and to retake Bakhmut, the Ukrainian army is back on the defensive on several fronts again. In the first half of October, Russia started its operations to recapture strategic momentum on the battlefield, only to achieve small gains while taking huge losses, on par with the Volodar and Seversky Donetsk debacles. All this was happening against the background of yet another significant escalation in the Middle East, which has the potential to impact the war in Ukraine. Command and political leadership have vowed to continue their counter-offensive operations through autumn and winter. It is certainly not impossible. Russia's previous offensive, which culminated with the capture of Bakhmut, went for 5 to 6 months throughout winter and muddy months of early spring.
New York.
But it will surely be harder than attacking in the summer.
What if Ukraine will fall? Oh, that will be devastating for the human race, man. You know, I think we truly live in a time of depression and devastation, man. You turn on the news, you turn on your phone, it's just death and destruction. People getting shot in the US, Israel, Gaza. If Ukraine will fall after all this shit, man, it will massively boost right-wing populism. It will massively boost the trolls and haters. It will mentally crush a lot of people, man. It will be very bad.
And the Ukrainian counter-offensive
that started in the summer
and seems to be fizzling out as we speak, did not achieve any of the strategic goals it had targeted. The Ukrainian army has tried different options to break through in the Zaporizhia Oblast, such as the mass armored offensive on the first days, which led to many destroyed tanks and armored vehicles, or the slow and methodical war of attrition, which has so far led to small gains. Everyone expected Ukraine to attack on the Zaporizhia front, and there was no element of surprise for the Russian army. It is incredibly difficult to have the element of surprise in this war, in which drones detect...
The US can't be at all places at the same time. I always think that's a very childish way to look at international conflict right now. What are you guys talking about the US being weak or can't be everywhere? All the US is doing is sending old equipment and money to Ukraine. That's all they do. Israel the same. They send one carrier group and a bunch of money. You think if China goes for Taiwan, suddenly they have nothing left? What?
Almost any notable enemy movement and massing of forces for a ground assault. As stated over and over again, Russian minefields and fortifications have been another decisive factor so far. There has been much focus on the Surovikin lines and the success of the Ukrainian army in going through the first one. But Russia has created defensive positions in almost every tree line, every ruin, every place that can offer some kind of cover. Moreover, Russian soldiers did not crumble as they did during the Kharkiv counteroffensive. Hence, since the liberation of Robotyne in late August, the AFU has not been able to retake any other settlement in the Zaporizhia Oblast. The Russian army has continued its tactic of active...
I saw a meme the other day on 9gag, my main news source, that Putin might have had cardiac arrest, might have died, which I was like, that's probably bullshit, man. But I'm wondering what would happen if Putin died right now. What would happen if he died right now? Will they be quiet? Will they replace him with one of the doubles? I wonder what it will look like. I have no idea. I don't want you to answer this. Nobody knows, but I wonder.
Defense, as they have been
it's like when Hitler died, right? They probably would have had a crazy power
lost to Ukrainians. To summarize,
they will replace him with Putin AI.
Not much indicates that the Ukrainian army will be able to achieve a decisive breakthrough on the Zaporizhia front in the upcoming months, despite the best efforts of the Ukrainian soldiers.
Somehow Prigozhin returned.
Events from the Zaporizhia front from the first half of October did not do much to change this opinion. On October 9th, several Russian and Ukrainian soldiers reported that the Russian 64th Motor Rifle Brigade made gains in the Marfapil-Chervona area near HOI4. There have also been reports about successful Russian counterattacks near Verbova. Still, the AFU continued expanding.
Still crazy to think though, right? Even though it hurts seeing Russians making gains, that Ukraine is holding against Russia, man. It's still mind-blowing to think about that, right?
Its Robotyne salient towards Verbova, Kopani, and Novopokrovivka in this period.
And Ukraine has managed to put this in a situation that even if Russia wins now, man, that it is a historical disaster for Russia.
For the past several weeks.
Thank you, Zumpia.
The status quo persists along the river Dnipro as well. Most of the reports
because NATO's funding Ukraine, well, did they in the first 2 weeks? Come on,
come from Russian sources.
Come on.
Which claim that the Ukrainians continued raiding islands in the Dnipro Delta.
The thing is, if Russia really wanted to beat the USA, they could that's just a fact. Man, can we just be adults here and not troll and be 50? I know it's every time I talk about adult stuff, man, your brains just go fucking...
As heavy artillery battles continued.
Jesus Christ.
They also claim that Ukraine is preparing to conduct an offensive on the left bank of the Dnipro and is deploying new units to this front for this purpose. Russian sources have...
If Ukraine didn't have USA from the start, they will capitulate from the start. Number one, so what? That's how real life works. They have the funding, which is good from the USA, fighting a mortal enemy in Russia. They held on their own the first weeks. Also, you know what? I want to show you something. I have a piece of paper on my screen. I just pulled it off, and you see what it says? It says, don't read chat. It says, don't talk to chat too much.
The Russian army has also reactivated its offensive operations on the North Luhansk front. The Russians have destroyed several bridges on the Oskil River in the Kupiansk section of the front, aiming to disrupt Ukrainian logistics. In this period, the Russian army has been attacking Sinkivka, Makiivka, Olyanska, Nevska and Serebryansky Forest and has made little progress in each case.
I really shouldn't read chat, man.
Is back to
A lot of
being
people
the
are
hottest
completely
front
gone
of this war.
in their heads.
The AFU is still trying to gain ground in the south of Bakhmut, while the Russians are regularly conducting counterattacks to recapture their lost positions.
Man, you guys
Some of these counterattacks, like in the Klishchiivka
Who's winning?
sector,
Well, not the achievement
were
hunters,
extremely
man. I'm
unsuccessful.
so fucking mad the achievement got bugged out. Man,
And according to several Russian military bloggers, the Russian commander of the Bakhmut section, Lieutenant General Andrei Shichovy, was dismissed for that. In the north, they have been a bit more successful, as the Russians have made minor gains near Bakivka, while the...
Sounds like a cool idea for HOI4, right? You have like a front line with 5 or 6 generals, and the generals have a bit more events. Like a general, I mean, sure, they can become... Actually, they can't. They can't become alcoholics. They are, and then they are for the rest of the game. The only thing that happens to generals is they get ill, right? But imagine in HOI4 you have generals, and maybe they got switched by spies. Like a spy has a mission that they can switch a general to be a double agent, so they have -10 attack or some shit. There's an alcoholic trait, yeah, but it stays the whole game. It doesn't change, right? Or imagine a general loses 200k men under his wing, and then he gets alcoholic. Like a bit more playfulness with the traits of generals in HOI4. Sounds... I always feel like I give very, very good advice here for the HOI4 developers,
The
man.
Ukrainian army has not made any meaningful progress
Thank
there
you, Kane,
in the
man.
past
Appreciate
several
you, man.
weeks.
Thank you, dude.
The Ukrainian army has gained some ground along the railway.
There's a huge firework outside my window. Oh, I can see it.
North of Klishchiivka, and according to some Russian sources, even gained a foothold on the east of the railway. But overall, ever since the liberation of Klishchiivka and the adjacent heights, the Ukrainian progress around Bakhmut has largely stalled as well.
Another video game thing I want to say is the Ukraine-Russia war totally needs a Steel Division game, man.
The
I swear to
most
God.
notable event on the battlefield in this period was the massive assault of the Russian army in the Avdiivka section on October 10th. Avdiivka is a Ukrainian stronghold right on the doorstep of Donetsk, which has been heavily fortified since 2014. The Russians have made several attempts to take over the Avdiivka section to push the Ukrainian forces away from the short-range artillery radius of Donetsk, but their biggest success so far has been the capture of Pisky in 2022, which did not alter the situation much. After days of heavy bombardment, the 15th, 21st and 144th...
Oh, you know that feeling when you cough and all the slime comes into your mouth and then you taste and swallow your own slime? It always tastes a bit nutty. It's like nuts.
Motor rifle brigades launched a ground assault in the north and the east of Avdiivka to take the remaining supply lines and encircle Avdiivka. Reportedly, the Ukrainian units were somehow caught by surprise at the initial stage of the battle, which allowed the Russian army to make some progress towards Stepova and Sevena. The Ukrainian 110th Mechanized Brigade and reinforcements, which were sent from the Bakhmut section, according to Russian sources, managed to stabilize the situation and inflicted truly massive losses on the Russians by a combination of minefields, anti-tank guns and artillery. A Ukrainian source made a conservative estimate of a minimum of 36 vehicles lost by the Russians, most of which being tanks, armored personnel carriers, infantry fighting vehicles, and transportation vehicles. Other sources report the destruction of 15 tanks, 33 IFVs and APCs, 6 trucks, and 14 transportation vehicles, and 13 artillery pieces. Ukrainian military correspondent Yuri Butazov claimed that 135 armored vehicles were destroyed in this assault. On the one hand, it shows that the Russians have been gathering reserves to mount assaults of their own, and that they clearly have a lot of offensive potential remaining. On the other hand, once again, for the umpteenth time in this war, Russia has lost a huge amount of equipment in a single day without much to show for it. As of October 16th,
they've been doing that for 2 years, man, and they still don't give a shit.
has become quieter. But this does not
They're like in
mean that the
HOI4
Russians
Soviet
do
Union,
not
man.
have the
They
offensive
just don't
potential
fucking
there
buy
to
until
complete
you
the
take the
job.
3 main cities.
The failure of the initial phase may push the Russians to embark on
How
another
long could you survive on that front line, Tommy? Current physique, training, and no preparation. What a fucking weird question, man. But I'm gonna be ultra arrogant here and say something. I think I wouldn't do that bad in the case of, we saw this video 2 days ago, right? That on a real life front line, in real war, a big reason why people die is carelessness. They leave the trench, they take a smoke, they want to look at stuff, they want to peek. I think I could control myself a lot, but don't do dumb mistakes. I think that's what a lot about war has always been about, to not do dumb mistakes, man. I had this phase some weeks ago where I was watching a lot of real life footage from the Ukraine war. I was watching real battles. You can see that stuff on YouTube, right? The real fights. And often I would wonder about the Russians and Ukrainians. They take no fucking cover, man. What are they doing? They're running in like, like, guys, hide behind the tree, go down.
Pain of war of attrition instead of attempting similar mass assaults, which often fail in this war. In his interview, the Ukrainian military intelligence chief Kyrylo Budanov admitted that at this point, Ukraine's counteroffensive is not behind schedule, but is actually out of schedule. Previously, Ukrainian officials had acknowledged concern about the slow pace of the counteroffensive, while promising success soon. But Budanov's words seem to indicate that at least for the time being, the Ukrainian army has stalled in the Zaporizhia Oblast. In the same interview, Budanov warned about another round of the battle for electric energy in the autumn-winter season, as according to him, Russia has been saving its missiles to damage Ukrainian civilian infrastructure. He added that there won't be any problems with Western support at least until mid-2024, after which things may change, particularly if the war between Israel and Hamas turns into another long war. Budanov argued that Russia has enough equipment to fight until 2025 without any problems.
Wow, how do they assess that? I wonder about this shit. I mean, this guy is his job, right? Budanov, he knows his shit. But how can you put a number on that? The Russians have equipment till 2025. I wonder how he does that.
Adding that by the end of 2026, Russia will start experiencing shortages. There are legitimate concerns regarding the continuation of military support to Ukraine, which have been voiced by Budanov, and which only heightened after the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Israel has already requested military aid from the United States,
fake stuff to the
and
Russians.
if the war takes too
Cyber
long
attacks,
and its
leaks,
geography
etc.
expands, Washington's focus may change. Even before the start of the Israel-Hamas war, US officials have...
The problem is that I'm seeing is when the election comes, Democrats versus Republicans, Donald Trump will massively use this stuff and be like, if you vote for me, we're going to stop sending money there, and I will just talk to Vladimir. I will just talk to him. I will give him a nice slap. And a lot of Americans that can't think very far, they're like, yeah, why is our money going to Ukraine and Israel? I will totally vote for Trump, even though like fucking 5% of your military spending for a year goes to these nations, but they're gonna use that stuff.
Been sending mixed messages about military aid to Ukraine. The Congress impasse, caused largely by the insistence of the extreme right-wing Congress people to stop aiding Ukraine, has been stalling the Biden administration's...
Shameful. In my opinion, that's shameful, man. You guys are Americans, man. The defenders of democracy and freedom, and you don't want to support Ukraine against a fascist regime, man. These far-right Republicans should be ashamed. I think they're just doing this for populism. They just want to be anti-government so they can get votes. That's what they do everywhere in the world. The far-right is just against everything to get votes for free.
To continue their military
shameful, man.
support
Very
to
shameful.
Ukraine. There have been media reports about the American insistence that Kyiv enhance its anti-corruption measures as a precondition for more aid. The US officials, including President Biden, have stated on numerous occasions that America will continue aiding for as long as it takes. But on October 11th, the National Security Council advisor, Kirby, emphasized that America is coming to the end of the rope with regards to financing of Ukraine, as it cannot continue indefinitely, which is a marked departure.
I don't. How can you say that? What a bad statement. What a devastating statement to freedom and democracy. The money they're sending is nothing compared to their yearly budget. How can you say this? The only way to say that is a political move, right? You wanna do something with this statement, right? You wanna make certain wheels start turning and stuff. Thank you, Österreicher.
Departure from the earlier statements of unwavering and almost unconditional support. Several media outlets have reported in this period that the Biden administration is preparing a massive one-and-done military aid package worth $50 to $100 billion, which would help Kyiv last until 2025. But so far, there is no indication that this is going to happen, particularly after the start of the war in the Middle East.
Yeah, I fully agree with the
Ukraine
anti-corruption
continues to
measurement.
rely
Yeah, but
on
that's something
Western
different. What that
military
Kirby guy said
systems,
has
as
nothing
its
to do with that.
internal
That's just
military production,
ultra
which it is trying to
destabilizing.
enhance, is still far from the level to be sufficient for the scale of the war going on. Still, in this period, Ukraine's allies continued pledging and sending military aid, with a major focus on air defense in preparation for another winter. On October 2nd, Germany delivered 32,000 rounds of 40mm ammunition, several border protection vehicles, 1 Beaver bridge-laying tank, and 2 Vicent mine-clearing tanks. On October 4th, it was reported that the United States would send thousands of small arms of Iranian production, confiscated on the way to Yemen, to Ukraine. On the same day, the Ukrainian Minister of Strategic Industries, Kamyshin, stated that Ukraine will start producing air defense systems jointly with the United States.
I agree, Alex. I don't get how the Israel conflict is so hot on the US. Israel can kind of defend itself. Depends if there's a fallout escalation with Hezbollah, Iran, and everybody, right? But Israel doesn't need
at the end of
that much
2023.
help compared to Ukraine,
On October
right?
5th, Spain promised 6 Hawk air defense systems, while the United Kingdom pledged
Israel
a
controls the
humanitarian
world.
aid
What a
package
childish
worth
comment, man.
500
The
million
US told
pounds.
Israel when to attack
Along
literally
with
for 2
that,
weeks now.
it was reported that the German Rheinmetall Corporation gave an unspecified number of Surveil-Spire anti-drone surveillance systems and 150,000 artillery
Rheinmetall,
shells
man.
to
We're
Ukraine.
lucky we have that in Germany, bro.
On October 6th,
Rheinmetall is
Sweden
ready for
announced
war.
its 14th military aid package worth $200 million. On October 10th, Zelensky stated that soon Ukraine will have a
is just another
corridor
country
to
for the US.
transport its grain
Yeah, that's
through
doubling shit.
Moldova and
That
Romania,
doesn't make sense.
since the route on the Black Sea remains perilous for Ukrainian cargo vessels. Ukraine needs to find an alternative to ship its grain to international markets, and it looks like their focus is shifting to land-based logistics. The good news is that the grain-related mini-crisis between Kyiv and its Central European allies has seemingly been resolved. Ukraine, Poland and Lithuania have reached an agreement, according to which Ukraine will be able to transport its grain to Lithuania, from where it will be shipped to international markets.
Klaipeda.
After that, Ukraine withdrew its complaint against Poland, Slovakia and Hungary to the WTO. Zelensky also added that Romania pledged to help train Ukrainian pilots on F-16s, along with helping Ukraine with artillery and air defense. On the same day, Germany pledged a significant military aid package focusing on air defense. It includes a Patriot system, Iris-T systems, 3 Gepard anti-aircraft guns, and 10 Leopard 1 tanks.
Thank you, Maximo. Thank you, bro.
On October 11th, the Pentagon chief
I listened to
Lloyd
Joe
Austin
Rogan, man. You know, Joe Rogan said if you take zinc, it helps you. And so I was Googling yesterday, but I'm taking zinc right now, zinc pills. And I was Googling around a bit, and there's nothing officially confirmed by scientists that zinc helps. But there's first little studies that are still not big enough that say that probants that have taken zinc during a disease were 2 days earlier recovered than others. So I'm a little bit here conspiracy theorist, man. I believe in zinc, bro.
announced a military aid package worth $200 million, consisting of AIM-9 Sidewinder short-range air-to-air missiles, HIMARS ammunition, TOW anti-tank missiles, and 155mm and 105mm shells, while Britain pledged Terrahawk Paladin air defense guns, along with demining equipment. Also on October 11th, the Danish defense minister informed that Denmark will send its first batch of F-16s in March or April of 2024. Belgium also promised to send F-16s as soon as they get their F-35 fighters, sometime in 2025. Lastly, on this day, Lithuania promised 2 NASAMS systems. Norway sent 17 million euros aid for demining,
effect? No, you're supposed
Finland,
to. I googled this shit. The World Health Organization says 20 milligrams zinc per day.
Announced a military aid package worth 96 million euros. On October 12th, it was reported that Czechia and Denmark would jointly supply weapons to Ukraine, the first batch of which includes 50 infantry fighting vehicles and main battle tanks, along with thousands of small arms.
Ukraine's a lot of shit now, but I think what Ukraine's missing is,
on October 13th,
I guess that Ukraine needs a bit more experience.
The Netherlands has
a lot of these young soldiers need
for
experience, man. How to handle these equipment,
There is much less to say about foreign military support to Russia, simply because there are fewer countries ready to provide weapons to Moscow, and when they do not announce
Kazakhstan
it.
is so big,
There
but
have
nobody
been
cares about
several
Kazakhstan.
media reports about the use of the Iranian-made 122mm rockets for Grad MLRS.
Let's see, Sammy,
Also,
man.
as predicted in connection with Putin's meeting with Kim, North Korea has apparently started sending weapons to Russia in exchange for sophisticated Russian military technology. The White House claims that more than 1,000 containers with weapons were shipped from North Korea to Russia.
Dude, you need
between
North
September
Korean help
7th
to
and
win against
October
Ukraine,
1st.
man. Mamma mia.
The war in Ukraine has seemingly reached the stage of a battle of wills. The only way to carry out successful offensive operations
Ukraine game?
is by tricking
Soon,
your
my
foe to the
achievement
point
just
when they
died.
cannot defend anymore. The capability to keep deploying soldiers, weapons and equipment to the battlefield, and maintaining economic and political stability at home longer than the other side has always been key to success in this war, but it will arguably become even more crucial in the upcoming months. Russia's Avdiivka offensive demonstrates that despite its high
didn't really talk
equipment
about the
losses,
offensive much.
it still has significant offensive potential. The bad news for the Kremlin is that their production does not cover for the losses. But it will take even more time to waste all of the vast stockpiles of old Soviet-era weapons.
That's something I just learned from the other video we saw 2 days ago, man. That's something I never thought about. In modern warfare, modern equipment is much harder to reproduce than like in World War II and stuff. When you lose a highly technologically advanced piece of equipment, it's much harder to replace than back in the day an M1 Garand or a fucking Sherman tank, right? So the longer a modern day war goes, the more the modern equipment drops and old equipment takes over, man. I just learned that, man. That makes a lot of sense.
Ukraine's reliance on Western support.
I just read it. I was reading this book. I'm reading this book right now, and the book is talking about lithium mining for batteries. And did you know that in international mining, whatever you mine, copper, silver, whatever the fuck you mine for, right? There's this thing. There's a name for it. There's the effect. I don't know the name. Chat will know that when the human race mines something like lithium, the first years are always the best. Why? In the beginning, our technology finds the most reserves, and we're starting to mine the best mining stations, right? A company doesn't want to mine a shit station, they mine the best stations. And the longer you mine something like copper or especially lithium, it actually goes down, right? It actually goes down over time because the human race attacks the biggest mines first. So over time, we go to more harder to reach, harder to maintain mining system. There's a name of that effect, that it gets weaker over time.
Means that they will be
That was
hoping
very
for
interesting
a
to
short
me, and it's
war
probably
between
also
Israel
true.
and Hamas, and for election victories of Ukraine-friendly political forces
I hope the Democrats
in the most
win, man.
powerful allied countries.
Fuck.
One may assume
I hope
that
the Democrats
Ukraine will
win.
continue getting military aid at least until a few months after the delivery of F-16s, since Western allies would likely want to give another chance to Kyiv to see if the F-16s change the situation on the battlefield. For now, let's look at the visually confirmed losses of equipment suffered by both sides, brought to you by the Oryx blog. As of October 16th, Russia has lost at least 2,389 tanks, 4,844 vehicles, 253 command posts and communication stations, 990 artillery systems and vehicles, 289 multiple rocket launchers, 93 aircraft, 106 helicopters, and 313 drones.
Jesus Christ.
Ukraine has lost at least 664 tanks, 2,099 vehicles,
That's a good KD,
17
man.
command posts and communication
That's a
stations,
good KD.
414 artillery systems and vehicles, 50 multiple rocket launchers,
Literal
77
awkward
aircraft,
tactics.
36 helicopters, and 208 drones. More videos on the Russian invasion of Ukraine are on the way.
2 to 1,
so
they
make
need
sure
1 to
you
10
are
though.
subscribed
If you want to beat
and have
Russia, you need
pressed
1
the
to
bell
10.
button.
What are you still doing here, mate? Jeez. Well, if you want to see more, click these videos. Have fun. Looking good, boy.